Man, they made Mussolini a woman in the reboot. The woke mob is taking over. So in 2022, the dumpster fire of a country where I was born and raised decided to elect our first female president. Yay!
Moi, je crois que Mussolini, c'était un bon politicien. C'est-à-dire que tout ce qu'il a fait pour l'Italie. Et on ne le trouve pas ça dans les politiciens qu'on a eu dans les derniers 50 ans.
Yeah, we're not doing fine. we're not doing fine. So who the hell is Giorgia Meloni, and why do I, a so-called feminist, am not cheering for her victory? And is this just regular living under the Italian government levels of, you know, doom and despair? Or should we start polishing the pitchforks? We will answer, of course, all of that, but I'm getting ahead of myself. Hi, nice to meet you. I don't think we've met. My name's Costanza. No, Costanza. That's like Costa Coffee. You know what? I'll take it. Other Italians often accuse me of rejecting my home country, of being ashamed of my Italian origins. And they are correct, but I shouldn't say that. Now that I moved back to Italy for personal reasons, I should be more proud of this nation. So as a sign of respect and honor for my country, I will be now performing our national anthem. Please, this is a serious thing. Porta in alto la mano. This video is brought to you by me, baby! I am my own sugar daddy. I've recently started to write essays for my Patreon. I have a series of essays that is about self-objectification, my relationship with women, and how I went from hating myself to self-acceptance. I also have this very personal essay about love addiction. I genuinely think this is my best writing so far, and I am so proud of this, and I would really love for you to check it out, because I think you're also gonna love it. So if any of this sounds like your kind of thing, go to patreon.com/costanza.polastri at the link in the description to read my work. Now back to the video. Before we get into any of this stuff, let me remind you that Italy has, at time of writing at least, 59 million citizens. Honest workers who pay almost 40% of the taxes that they owe the government. A country of pizza makers, gangsters, plumbers, and that one pig from the Miyazaki movie.
Piuttosto che diventare un fascista, meglio essere un maiale.
Based as fuck, by the way, 11 out of 10, no notes. My point is that I cannot represent the opinion of all Italians, and I'm not really trying. I'm gonna give you my own informed opinion as a young queer leftist, or as I like to call it, an annoying cunt. But if that was the opinion of the majority, we wouldn't be here in the first place, so please don't take my opinion as the opinion. Because, like, I make a lot of jokes that, like, you know, this country's fucked up, everything is crumbling and all that, and there's good reasons for it, not gonna lie. But there's also the problem that the capacity of a country to dig itself out of recession and financial crisis is contingent on the reputation that this country has, right? So before speaking on something that you know nothing about, consider shutting the fuck up. Segways, who needs them? We come from a decade of she-inspirational posters with quotes like, "My favorite position, CEO." This phenomenon, which admittedly was a step in the right direction, but is also incredibly white, upper middle class, and painfully cringe, is known as liberal feminism, or girl boss feminism. The video on girl boss is coming, by the way. I'm coming for the girl bosses. And because we come from a decade of this stuff, we have kind of this mentality still that if one white woman is in the room where it happens, then that's gonna magically translate to better conditions for all women. A sort of trickle-down gender equality, which is not quite how it works. Those who do not study "We Were What" are doomed to repeat it. So even if Giorgia Meloni has never branded herself as a girl boss, and definitely not as a feminist, the idea that, like, oh, it's a woman so everything is gonna be fine is still alive and present, and I want to challenge it. Hillary Clinton, of all people, congratulated Giorgia Meloni on her victory. Actually, no, she didn't. She didn't. What she said is in contradiction with what these headlines would have you thinking. Journalism, look what you made me do. We're defending Hillary Clinton. What are we doing on this channel? But no, I don't think Giorgia Meloni is in any way a feminist victory. I suspect that the reason why this idea was very popular in my country is that, honestly, we kind of need a win right now, or at least a cope. So there was this kind of like, well, at least it's a woman, that's gotta be progress, right? How do you not lose hope in a country like this? Let's start with the basics. Who is Giorgia Meloni? Giorgia Meloni started her political career in the youth section of Movimento Sociale Italiano, which is a neo-fascist political party, founded by the former followers of Benito Mussolini himself. I'm saying this right off the bat because if I have to argue with another liberal on whether or not she's really a fascist, I swear to God. Then the party changed name to Alleanza Nazionale, and she climbed the rankings of this party until she became the president. Finally, in 2012, she founded Fratelli d'Italia, and Fratelli d'Italia stayed a minor party basically until 2020. But with the pandemic, it grew in popularity quite rapidly, giving voice to the growing discontent in the Italian population for the very harsh COVID restrictions. And in 2022, she became the first woman president of the country, leading a government coalition of right-wing, incompetent buffoons. Like, you gotta admit, even if you like Giorgia Meloni, even if you voted for her, she's surrounded by idiots. Like, this guy has said on national television that within a week, within a month, something like that, the police found 50 million tons of cocaine.
Lei pensi che la Guardia di Finanza l'anno scorso ha fatto, solo la Guardia di Finanza ha fatto un sequestro di 50, complessivamente sequestri per 50 milioni di tonnellate di
Quindi è
cocaina.
chiaro che...
How do you not lose hope in a country like this? Segways are overrated. My first reason for calling her politics cruel, besides the fact that she was clapping and cheering when the parliament voted against a law to protect disabled people from hate speech, I like it here so much, is her party's stance on abortion. Right, we're going there, bestie. In Italy, abortion rights are protected by Law 194, passed in 1978. This law is from half a century ago, so not exactly the beacon of progressivism that we might hope for, but at least, hey, abortion is codified in the law, so we're good, right? Oh, my sweet summer clump of cells. Of course not. We never are. Law 194 guarantees the right to abortion in the first 90 days of pregnancy for any reason, and only for certain medical reasons after that. Law 194 also states that the structures who administer abortions should 1. Inform women about their rights, and 2. Inform women about possible solutions for the problems that might push those women to not continue the pregnancy. And this last point is what Giorgia has been arguing for. In a viral clip, she repeatedly says that she does not want to change or modify or abolish Law 194.
Non intendo abolire la legge 194. Non intendo modificare la legge. Non intendo modificare la legge 194. Capito? I don't want to cancel it. Ok? In quale lingua lo posso spiegare? Voglio applicare la legge 194, cioè aggiungere un diritto. Vuol dire, se oggi ci sono delle donne che in Italia si trovano costrette ad abortire, per esempio perché ritengono di non avere i soldi per crescere quel bambino, per portare a termine la gravidanza, per esempio perché si sentono sole, per esempio perché non hanno istruzioni e danno loro una mano, voglio dare loro la possibilità di fare una scelta diversa, senza nulla togliere a chi vuole fare la scelta d'aborto.
I am ever so slightly suspicious of this. Firstly, Law 194 has a problem with being enforced, but it's in the other direction. Like, in theory, we have access to safe and legal abortions, but in practice, up to 64% of gynecologists are conscientious objectors, meaning that they can refuse to give abortion-related care for religious or moral principles. I want to be fair here that even though I'm extremely pro-choice, I don't think that if someone feels like they don't want to perform an abortion, they should be forced to do it. I don't think that we should force gynecologists to do it. I just think that if you don't want to do abortion, then you should be anything else rather than a gynecologist. So we have this situation of, yes, you do have a right to abortion, but have you considered that no, actually, and also fuck you. So if a politician says that she wants to apply Law 194 in full and doesn't even address the problem of gynecologists that don't perform abortion, then yeah, smell a liar. Secondly, I find it extremely disturbing that this woman, Eugenia Roccella, was chosen for the Ministry of Equal Opportunities and Families. Why? Well, because she has opinions.
È un diritto l'aborto, siamo d'accordo?
Io sono una femminista, le femministe non hanno mai considerato l'aborto un diritto, hanno sempre detto che esula dal territorio del diritto.
Ma quale
Però il femminismo della differenza ha sempre detto che non è un diritto, quindi l'aborto è il lato scuro, diciamo, della maternità, ed è la maternità che non è mai entrata nello spazio pubblico. Persino il concetto di cittadinanza, di individuo, quando si dice individuo vuol dire che non si divide, ma una donna diventa due in uno.
L'aborto fa parte di una delle libertà delle donne?
Purtroppo sì, non è una bella cosa.
And thirdly, Fratelli d'Italia has already made it harder to access abortions in the places where it has the power to do so. In Marche, an Italian region in which they are the leading party, they have already reduced the time in which it is legal to have an abortion from 9 weeks to 7 weeks. Law 194 says that it is advisable to give a woman a week to think about it before she performs the abortion, but in Marche this waiting period has been made mandatory. And also they have ruled that only hospitals can deliver abortions, when before you could also have it at a health clinic. Normally I would be in favor of oppressing the people from Pesaro, but I think this points to a larger issue. So Fratelli d'Italia says that they want to expand our rights, and then they don't even acknowledge the ways in which our rights are under threat right now. They do nothing to actually guarantee access to safe abortion. They elect ministers with explicitly anti-abortion agendas, and when they gain power, they use it to limit access to safe abortions. So yeah, sorry for not believing that she wants to increase our rights. This is a big part of the reason why the association Non Una di Meno, which is one of the biggest feminist associations in the country, has organized many protests against the conditions of women in Italy. I want to pause here for a second and say that the sentiment expressed by Giorgia Meloni, even if I don't believe her, is actually something that I agree with. It's cruel to force someone who doesn't want a child to carry out a pregnancy, and it's cruel to force someone that does want the child to have an abortion. It's called pro-choice for a damn reason. Reproductive rights are not just access to safe and legal abortions. There's also the much broader topic of building a society in which if you want a child, you are pretty much guaranteed the resources to raise it. Ideal reproductive rights should include much more than abortion. This means making a world in which everybody has the resources to carry out a pregnancy if they want to. Nobody should be forced to give up a pregnancy just because they feel like they cannot afford a child. Livable wages, publicly funded childcare, fair redistribution of domestic labor, more flexibility on the workplace. These are all important parts of feminism and of reproductive rights. That's the only stance that you can take as a leftist, okay? So I agree with that. It's just that I don't think Giorgia Meloni is applying it. Some women want children but cannot have them, usually because of how society is set up. And I think that's tragic and cruel. Giorgia Meloni says that she wants to help these women. So how is she doing on that front? Would you be shocked to find out that not very well? Meloni is kind of obsessed with the idea that women are first and foremost destined to be mothers. She gave a speech in Spain with the S but also without it, where she said, among other things,
la identidad sexual que los grupos de presión LGBT desean abatir con la propaganda de género en las escuelas, en los medios de comunicación, en las instituciones, con el principio del self-ID. Yo no soy lo que soy, soy que siento, soy lo que siento, que afecta principalmente a los derechos y a los logros de las mujeres. Nuestra espiritualidad, el sentido de las raíces sagradas y cristianas están siendo atacadas.
How can you do absolute relativism? Like, if it's relativism, how can it... Never mind. My favorite part of this speech, by the way, is the part where she says that she opposes rental uterus and free drugs. A policy that, as far as I'm aware of, no one is advocating for. Or actually maybe someone is. Maybe the guy who found 50 million tons of cocaine, maybe he's trying to give it up. He's trying to get rid of it. I think the decision to have a child is incredibly personal, and if someone decides to wait for it or forgo it altogether, there's a million different things that could have led to that decision, of course. So I'm not claiming to represent the opinion of all Italian women, or even of all women, of course, but I can give my perspective as a 27-year-old Italian woman who now lives in Italy. I'm in that age bracket where the conversation about having kids is kind of like always in the air. Not in a negative way, like the people around me don't push me into any direction. I really feel like my friends and family would be fine whether or not I had kids, so I'm lucky that way. It's more like the idea of going to college when you're 19. It's kind of everything that everyone around you is talking about. Finally gotten to the age where if one of my friends announces a pregnancy, it's a good thing and it's not you ruining your life. But I noticed that the conversations I have with my Italian friends are really different from the ones I have with my friends who live abroad. Because Italians just know that they cannot afford it. How do you not lose hope in a country like this? Politically and from the identity point of view, I embody a lot of things that Meloni opposes. I'm a bisexual feminist who wants more open borders. On a level, it really feels like this government kind of opposes who I am as a person. I know I'm a catch, but unfortunately I only date pigs who fly planes and oppose fascism. He's charming, what can I say? However, when I ask myself why I'm not interested in having kids, the answer is not some radical feminist, queer theory thing. It's much more basic. I cannot afford to have children. Children are expensive. I don't have the money. We have one of the highest rates of youth unemployment in all of Europe. And by the way, I'm really glad that Gen Z is actually waking up to leftist politics, because honestly, we've had a decade and a half of articles in which young people, at the time millennials, were called like entitled, choosy, lazy. Honestly, if I have to read another one, I'm just gonna become the Unabomber. the Unabimber. I'm so sorry. Women in particular are... What is this video? Women in particular are vulnerable to poverty. Italy has the highest rate of female unemployment in all of Europe. Slay, I guess. And up to 25% of women are paid less than 9 euros an hour. Girl, 9 euros an hour! Girl! And by the way, it's not that much better for middle-class women. Like, of course, if you come from generational wealth, you have a lot more safety blanket and you have a lot more freedom in what you want to pursue. But the actual pay rate is not that better. As a piece of anecdotal evidence, I have a bachelor's degree in physics, and the jobs, the entry-level jobs that I could find, pay like 10 to 11 euros an hour. I will commit crimes. This is an issue of labor rights. We're not paid enough to have children. Our generation is just poor. And to again support the idea that this is about money and not Christian roots, whatever the hell that means, I don't think it's a coincidence that the women in the richer parts of the countries are having a lot more children than the women in the poorer parts of the country. Countries like the Netherlands and Germany have more immigrants per capita than Italy. They rank higher in LGBT equality index and gender equality index. By Meloni's standards, these are a worse country. They definitely have more aggressive atheism, whatever that is. And yet, Dutch women and German women are having more children than Italian ones. And it's not just the immigrants. Like, I'm tired of being gaslit, okay? Italian women are not losing their Christian roots. We're not indoctrinated by gender ideology. We're not incentivized to have abortion. We definitely are not doing that. We're not anti-patriotic. We don't hate men. We're not entitled, selfish, lazy, or whatever the hell you called us for the past 15 years. We're just poor. We just cannot afford to have children. Italian women are reasonable people who make decisions based on their circumstances, like everyone else. If we look at our paycheck and see that there's not enough money for rent and food for ourselves, we're not gonna have children, because that would be irresponsible. And no amounts of naval blockades to keep out the migrants will change that. How do you not lose hope in a country like this? Hand gestures. The socialist solution to this problem is higher wages, shorter work weeks, more freedom in the workplace, more flexibility, laws that protect gender discrimination on the workplace. Because can we talk about how fucking hard it is to find a job at 27 as a woman, because everybody thinks that you're gonna go on maternity leave as soon as they hire you? More financial help to new families, publicly funded childcare and schools, and teaching men to do their fucking share of the household chores, because that's another thing we have to handle. It pains to say this, but the French are doing it best. By the way, completely unrelated, but remember when Italians won the World Cup in 2006? And some people were convinced that the French were gonna give back the Mona Lisa because of it. Most normal country. And what is Meloni doing to raise the stipends of young women? Meloni's party has opposed national minimum wage. They got rid of a pretty substantial state subsidy called Reddito di Cittadinanza, which was a substantial help for poor families. Yeah, they did reduce taxes on diapers and feeding bottles. That's good, okay, like, I unironically agree with that, but that's not even nearly enough, especially considering that they are giving tax breaks to upper middle class people. They refuse to take funds from the insanely high pension expense that our country has and redirect them to anything that could help young people. And they have not proposed any additional funding for childcare, transportation, young families, schools, maternity wards, nothing. This is a nation that demands women have children and refuses to take care of those children. This is not patriotism. We're far enough into the video where I can pull out some fancy terminology, because this is a classic case of scapegoating, which is when Okay, here, I'm gonna explain it like a bit more. Sorry to the sociologists in the comment section, but it starts with a problem that is complex, difficult to fix, or maybe the solution to this problem would threaten the power of the people in power. And so the people in power go, actually, the reason why you feel like you have this problem is because of those folks right there. And usually the scapegoat, again, is a group that is already marginalized. In this case, the fact that wages are so fucking low in Italy, especially for young people, is hidden. We don't talk about that. The people who get the blame for why women are not having children as much are the LGBT people, leftists, a generic nebulous, they are attacking our roots. But this is delusional. This is just not how it works. The far right does this thing where it refuses to acknowledge that raising kids and cleaning the house and, like, you know, what they call reproductive labor. The far right refuses to say that that is an actual job that deserves to be paid. They promote this myth of the mother as almost a divine figure, but to me that is just an excuse to not pay the work what it's worth. All of this talk about the pride that women should take. Why is that so bright in here all of a sudden? All of this talk about the pride that women should have in having mothers. Like, pride is not gonna pay rent, girl. The reason why women are not leaving their jobs and have 47 million children, you know, besides the fact that this is not the 1920s anymore, is that we need to be working. Like, neither us nor our boyfriends know how we're gonna make rent in 6 months. And it's been like this since I was in high school, so don't give me this Christian roots bullshit. And women know that if shit hits the fan, they're gonna have to be the ones who leave their already unstable and precarious careers to take care of the kids. Because that's what happened during the pandemic. So I don't know if I want children. Honestly, I've always been a lot more on the side of no than yes. Again, the reasons why someone might not want children are complicated and personal, and economics is not just one of them. But as long as I stay in Italy, that's not even an option considering the wages here. But sure, I guess, keep blaming the queers for smoking gender or something, because this is how scapegoating works, right? You can't fix the problem, or you refuse to, so you make up a different problem, you find a group of people to blame for everything who don't have the power to fight back, and you promise to fix that one instead, as if that's gonna solve anything. And we fall for this every fucking time. How do you not lose hope in a country like this? Noi, gente che spera, cercando qualcosa di più, fondo alla sera, la sera, la sera, la sera, noi. I can't really tell you what to do. You kind of knew that already, right? But that's kind of the reason why we keep putting this nationalist weirdos into power, right? Like, we want there to be someone who knows what to do. All I can tell you is what I do when I'm feeling hopeless. And if some of the tools that I'm gonna give you seem useful, well, feel free to borrow them. So here is my guide to how not to lose hope in a crumbling country where everything hates you. Yay! So, first, I don't burn myself out on social media. Anger is a very powerful political tool, but if the only people who benefit from your anger are the billionaires in charge of social media platforms, then that's not gonna go very far, is it? Secondly, building for myself a life that I don't want to escape is actually sort of kind of a revolutionary act. It's easy to forget this these days because queer people, especially queer people of my generation, enjoy freedom that was unthinkable, even just for the generation of my parents. To the point where, like, twice a year there's some, like, rich, gay, hot man who lives in Milan who feels the need to go, guys, I think we did it. I think we have enough rights now. I think we did it. We don't need the movement anymore. Coming out as a Tommaso Zorzi hater. But you know, nepo gabies aside, living a joyful queer life is inherently anti-fascist. In fact, I would argue that relating to other people and embracing them in their full humanity is inherently a radical anti-fascist act. It also makes your life easier, you know? And also, like, to the straight men who still follow me from my science channel, by the way, sorry about the... Yeah, given that obviously I don't know what it's like to be a man, so you know, you kind of have to answer that question for yourself. But I think that embracing your sexuality to the fullest and not seeing, you know, dating, sex, relationships, marriage, that kind of stuff, not seeing it as like an occasion for dominance, but as an occasion for connection and vulnerability, and really on a deep internal level fighting the logic of the patriarchy that says that love can only happen through dominance is, well, first thing first is it makes your life easier, because now people are not afraid of you anymore, but also it puts you at odds with what fascism demands of you. And it's a good, cool thing to do, in my opinion. You're bombarded with, like, absolute nonsense that tells you to, I don't know, join the mob, or whatever the fuck Andrew Tate is up to these days. By the way, how's the guy doing?
I was awoken last night by an icy chill and identified a ghost in my prison cell. He was terrified and begged me not to annihilate him. I sent him back to hell with a message for the demons. I am always ready.
Great. Keep it up, sweetie. You're doing amazing. You know what? Just read The Will to Change. There is a reason why everybody is recommending you this book. What I'm trying to say is that being yourself often requires you to be against fascism and go against what fascism wants you to be. So that, to me, seems like a great place to start. Build for yourself a life that you don't want to escape, and base your relationship in mutual understanding, tolerance, and vulnerability. Okay, now we just wait for a million years for the color to be done. Progressive politics is not something that you are, it's something that you do. So, do! Ideally, with other people. There's probably some organizations in your area that need your help. If you are still in education, chances are your high school, your college is organizing something. There's probably a youth division of the thing that you kind of reluctantly vote for. If you are in the workforce, creating relationships that are professional but also genuine with your colleagues is probably the best thing that you can do, both for your career and for class unity. So yeah, just make friends with your colleagues. Don't bitch too much about your work, because that can be seen as unprofessional, but you know, don't restrain yourself either. And if you are looking for a job, you know, the so-called needs, not in education, employment, or training, which is a really weird way of referring to people who are either disabled or looking for a job, but that's a story for another time. Volunteering is almost always a good usage of your time. A good way to find what's in your local area is to just Google volunteering and the name of your town. My Canadian friends recommend Food Not Bomb. Also remember that it doesn't have to be forever. Like, you can just go to a place and see what's the vibe, and then if it's not, you know, your scene, you can try somewhere else. Like, you're not really doing anything permanent here if you try. I actually recommend Googling the local division of your party. I understand that people don't want to be associated, like, you know, with the Democratic Party, for example, if you're American, because they associated with all sorts of, like, bootlegging nonsense, right? But in my experience, the local divisions of parties are actually really good. So Google Democrats, Democratic Party, whatever is like the mainstream left party of your country, and then your town. And you're probably gonna find something worth doing, usually. If you are specifically looking for something in Italy, I think that Non Una di Meno is doing great work for feminism and stuff like that. I know they had a weird stance on Ukraine and stuff, but they do good work. Also, the Democratic Party in Italy, again, the local division, is, in my experience, not bad. It gets shit done. Put time and effort into finding people that you have somewhat something in common, you know? Join them, see what they're up to, see what the vibe is there. We both know that the situation is dire. I encourage everyone to try as hard as they can to build a life for themselves, a good life, a life that they enjoy, which is really difficult, actually. And if building a good life means living the fucking elephant graveyard that this country has become, honestly, you have my blessing. You do not owe anything to anyone. You especially do not owe anything to people who have built a country that is actively hostile to people like you. Don't bother packing the guilt. Trust me, it's not gonna serve you well. You have a right to look for something better for yourself. However, if you do have to stay, I want you to know that you are way less alone than it looks. So log off first, stop the doom scrolling, then secondly, take care of yourself and your friends, and thirdly, reach out to the people who are organizing something. There are many of them out there, and it's the only way to put your rage towards something that is actually productive. Good fucking luck. God knows we need it.